The following video animation is brought to you by the Landscape Evolution Observatory experiment at the Biosphere 2 research facility of the University of Arizona. The Landscape Evolution Observatory, LEO, is located within the Biosphere 2 research facility in southern Arizona. Within this structure, 3 semicircular glass cascades enclose 3 artificial hill slopes. Let's take a look at one of the hill slopes from inside. Each hill slope was built to observe coevolution of hydrological, biogeochemical, and ecological processes as the landscape evolves over time. LEO is currently in a bare soil phase. In coming years, researchers at LEO will add vascular plants to drive the landscape towards a more complex system. The Landscape Evolution Observatory hill slope is a 30-meter long, 11-meter wide, and 1-meter deep hydrologic system. The LEO hill slope is a zero-order basin with a convergent topography and an average slope of 10 degrees. Each hill slope is primarily made up of loamy sand-textured basaltic tephra. The most downslope, 5.5 cubic meters, is filled with gravel-textured basaltic tephra. The porosity of the loamy sand-textured soil is 0.4, with a saturated hydraulic conductivity of about 10 meters per day. A custom-engineered irrigation system supplies water to the LEO soil surface. The downslope boundary is exposed to atmospheric pressure, creating the seepage face boundary condition. The other boundaries are supported by the steel structure, creating the no-flow boundary condition. The LEO hill slope is equipped with a dense internal sensor and sampling network. 15 Campbell Scientific 451 pressure transducers measure water pressure along the base depths of the hill slope every 15 minutes. Assuming hydrostatic pressure, the measured pressure can be converted to water table height. 496 Decagon 5TM sensors measure soil water content every 15 minutes. We analyze isotope composition of subsurface water at 141 locations at various intervals, ranging from 7 hours to 101 hours. LEO comes with several caveats with respect to its experimental design and broader research applications. Perhaps the bottom boundary condition is the most significant one. The bottom boundary condition, which is intended to be impermeable, makes the LEO hill slope represent only certain types of landscapes and model certain flow generation mechanisms. The LEO hill slope mimics a landscape with shallow depth to bedrock, like the hill slope shown on the left. In landscapes with deep depth to bedrock, the dynamics inside the LEO hill slopes might represent the perched water table dynamics above an aquiclude. When leakage through the soil-bedrock interface or the soil-saprolite interface is significant, dynamics in those landscapes, such as how the water table is formed, may differ from those dynamics observed at LEO. Again, these LEO hill slopes may differ from natural landscapes in several aspects, like what we've described in the previous slides. In spite of these differences, LEO comes with several key advantages for conducting experiments and testing models, including high level of climate control, known boundary conditions and initial conditions, high-resolution spatial and temporal measurements, and the ability to close the mass balance with high accuracy at the hill-slope scale, where important processes and those interactions and feedbacks can be observed. With these experimental advantages, we conducted the following bare soil experiment that gives newfound insight into hill-slope scale water flow and transport dynamics. This video presents a set of experimental data collected from December 1st, 2016 to December 22nd, 2016. During this period, an irrigation sequence was repeated every 3.5 days. Each sequence consisted of two 3-hour, 12 millimeter per hour pulses that are 7 hours apart. Due to a malfunction of the irrigation system, the irrigation sequence in the second cycle is different. The irrigation rate during the last hour of the first pulse was doubled. Therefore, the second pulse was irrigated for only 2 hours. We irrigated about 500 per mil deuterium-labeled water during the first cycle. The second and third plots show the discharge time series and the tracer breakthrough curve observed at the downslope boundary. Let's take a look at the flow dynamics. For visualization purpose, the soil depth is magnified by a factor of 3. In this 3D animation, the extent of the saturated zone is the Delaunay triangulation of the observed water table height at the 15 locations. These animations show the extent of the saturated zone and the soil water content dynamics during the experimental period. The saturated zone illustrates two dynamics. One, the wetting up from the bedrock surface into the soil profile, and two, the saturation from downslope to upslope. The observed saturation zone forms a wedge-like shape, which is a characteristic of hill slopes with high hill slope numbers. The hill slope number is a dimensionless number that explains the relative importance of the advective water dynamics to the diffusive water dynamics in the subsurface. When the hill slope number is high, the advective water dynamics dominate over the diffusive water dynamics, which is usually a characteristic of steep hill slopes. The hill slope number for the Leo hill slope was high during this experiment. Also, significant time delays were observed in the water table dynamics at the upslope locations. For example, the water table height at 13 meters upslope reaches its peak about 1 day after the last irrigation pulse. This delay is mostly due to the continuous water supply from upslope. Soil water content data illustrates that water content at the further upslope bottom started to deplete significantly after the upslope water table reaches its peak, meaning that the supply reduced around that time. Now, we are going to show the tracer dynamics inside the hill slope. The animation on the left shows the observed tracer enrichment in the 8 transverse slices. The animation on the bottom right shows the observed tracer enrichment in the longitudinal slice at x equals 0 meters. Let's first take a look at the animations for the whole experimental period. These animations show that vertical transport is faster at upslope locations. This is, in a sense, counterintuitive because the upslope is drier. This faster upslope vertical transport is due to more significant lateral flow at downslope locations. The water velocity is higher at the downslope locations. However, the direction is not vertical and rotates toward the downslope due to lateral hydraulic head gradient. In addition, we can roughly examine the water age structure inside the hillslope. During the first part of the experiment, the water under the tracer is old water that entered the hillslope before the experiment. The experimental data show that old water is mostly present at the downslope region. Over time, the tracer-labeled water gets old. The experimental data again show that old water is mostly present at the downslope. This figure illustrates the isosurface of tracer data at 0 per mil, confirming again that most of the tracer-labeled old water is present at the downslope region. This is a characteristic of hillslope with a high hillslope number. The figure on the left shows the modeled steady-state saturated zone age structures for 2 hillslope numbers. When the hillslope number is high, old water, which was recharged at the upslope, moves downslope due to the advective water dynamics, so the old water is present only at the downslope region. In contrast, when the hillslope number is low, old water can stay upslope, as the lateral hydraulic head gradient at the upslope region is low. This indicates that hillslopes with high hillslope numbers preferentially discharge old water in the system. This finding can explain a feature of the observed storage selection function, also known as the SAS function, that describes spatially lumped system-scale transport dynamics using water age. Let us briefly explain what the SAS function is. First, let us conceptualize a hydrologic system, like the diagram on the right, and explain water transport dynamics of the system using water age. In the diagram on the right, J is precipitation, Q is discharge, and ET is evapotranspiration. The color indicates water age in the system and in fluxes. Light green represents young water, and dark blue represents old water. The water age of precipitation J is 0 when it enters the system, so it's represented by a white color. For this system, we need 2 SAS functions to fully describe the transport dynamics, one for discharge and another for evapotranspiration. In this animation, we focus on the discharge SAS function. The SAS function uses the age composition of water in the system and the age composition of water in the discharge to simulate the system-scale transport dynamics. The age structure inside the system can be characterized by the age-ranked storage, which is the volume of water inside the system ranked by age, from the youngest to the oldest. It is defined up to S, which is the storage of the system. The age structure inside the discharge can be characterized by the age-ranked discharge. Here, we normalize it so it can be defined from 0 to 1. The SAS function will be drawn in the white box. The x-axis of the SAS function plot is the age-ranked storage, and the y-axis of the SAS function plot is the normalized age-ranked discharge. When we shift the age fraction in the discharge to the corresponding age-ranked storage and draw a line that connects the same water age, we get the SAS function. The SAS function explains the system-scale transport dynamics by relating the water age structure inside the system to the water age structure in the discharge. The SAS function here illustrates preferential discharge of old water in the system. In this example, old water accounts for a smaller portion of storage, but a larger portion of discharge compared to young water. Note that this function is time variable because the water age structure of storage and the water age structure of discharge both vary over time. The observed time variable SAS function, illustrated at the bottom left, is colored according to a wetness condition. The observed function indicates that the hillslope preferentially discharged old water in the system. The preferential discharge of old water in the system, again, is a characteristic of hillslopes with a high hillslope number. Thank you for watching this presentation, and stay tuned for more research updates from the Landscape Evolution Observatory at Biosphere 2.